Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we convene the second of 5 programs on self-healing practices that you can do wherever you are in a very simple, free, and effective way to increase your overall health, both in terms of your body and your soul. To support your immune system, to give you more vitality, but also more calmness in the hustle and bustle and all the chaos of our world. Yesterday in our first session, we had a brilliant discourse on the power of coherent breathing, something that we do every session on Humanity Rising. The power of coherent breathing is an extraordinary thing to be aware of. Just simply breathing brings our entire being into both coherence and vitality. And today we're going to dive into the whole domain of evolutionary somatics, which is another extraordinary field of study and personal empowerment. We want to begin, as we always do, with some coherence breathing, but we're going to do it in a very different way today. And to introduce our program, I want to welcome back Deanna Rice, who is convening this program and has convened several other programs on Humanity Rising. She's a polarity practitioner, hypnotherapist for many decades, and she is passionate about people living to their potential through taking care of themselves in very simple but profound ways, and then really has brought into modern scientific parlance some of the most ancient practices of the wisdom traditions that we as human beings have developed over thousands and thousands of years. So Deanna, welcome to this session of Humanity Rising, and I turn the program over to you.
Thank you so much, Jim. I'm very excited to open up this way today. We're going to do it with coherent breathing, as Jim mentioned, and a rhythm that will be guiding us with 2 bells. And this time we're going to do it with a visual. It's called a Hoberman Sphere that Bruce, one of our presenters, is going to be expanding. So I'm going to come off camera and I want you to just focus on the Hoberman Sphere as the 2 bell track comes up, and we'll do some coherent breathing with it. So you want to breathe in, that's it, and expanding the sphere. Breathing in, fully expand it. That's it. Breathing out. Good, that's it. Breathing in, it expands fully. Breathing out. Tracks. Beautiful. 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 Thank you, Bruce. Wow, I love that. Thank you so much. This day is the most exciting of the week for me. The reason being these two people, Bruce Bell, who you've seen on screen and now is joining by Elizabeth and Isabel. Somatics is the most important for us to embody our experience of here on planet Earth and be able to combat all the chaos and insanity that we see on our exterior. Our inner peace and our inner selves are the most important to build strength. And this couple I met in New York City at their yoga studios. They are extraordinary in their approach. I'm always fascinated to learn more from both of you. And just a little history, they're Barbara Brennan's longtime teachers. They do continuum, a movement, that philosophy and practice that is fascinating to me. Connecting to the interoception maps of our body and the fascia. So it is such an enormous and beautiful mosaic of an approach to the human body. And of course, we all know the mind, body, soul, spirit connection is all interrelated in this work. So welcome, both of you. I'm excited to see the presentation. This is your second time back. And thank you, Bruce, for opening. I just have a quick question for you. How you felt while you were holding the sphere. And I noticed a little shifts towards the end. You kind of came up on your toes a little bit, and it seemed to be like really affecting your physicality. I'm just curious your take on that.
Well, definitely. It actually gave a visual representation, but also it demanded as the performer per se to start, wait a minute, at first I was only so big, and then I got a little bit bigger because we hydrate our fascia while we breathe. So that means there's more fluid and pressures inside the body that we are now dancing in rhythm to.
Wonderful. I love it. Take it away, both of you.
Well, hello, everyone. I just want to say that Bruce and I are thrilled to be back joining you again. Let's just dive right in because we're really excited. What we're going to share with you today is a new view of the body. And we have some slides here, and we're just going to slip right in. Bruce is going to slip us right into our first slide here.
Come on.
There you go. Okay, a new view of the body. Now you probably recognize the picture on the left of a wooden artist's mannequin. It's also a great representation of, I don't know about you, but it's how I always understood the body. In all my years of studying anatomy and biomechanics and kinesiology, you know, this is kind of the impression that we get, but that's not at all accurate. I just want to tell you that. So what you see on the right is a photograph of the embryo of a mouse, and it's the mouse's fibroblast. So what you're seeing is a fascial cell in an embryonic mouse. And this beautiful design that you see on it is the living web of the electric biointelligence that informs all organic life on Earth. And in this particular case, you are seeing this appear as a living liquid crystal matrix, which is what it is. Now, I also want to introduce you to a new vision of fitness for the 21st century. But that's not it, that's us. So this new vision of fitness for the 21st century really is more about, the conversation begins with, what do we even mean by health and fitness now? Everything has changed so much. So let's backtrack a little bit. This new vision of health is not only health of systems of our body, like the musculoskeletal system, the central nervous system, the cardiovascular system. It's not any of that. It's a whole body, integrated, complex living system. That's what we are. That's what nature is. And there's something really unique about living systems. They have their own qualities, such as they're more than the sum of their parts. They self-generate from a life spark, really. They self-organize. So there's no guidebook telling this embryo how to grow a liver or an ear. There's no external control guiding it. And living systems exhibit emergent behaviors. So certain conditions arise and all of a sudden it's doing something that you've never seen it do before. And I think the perfect example of this is, think about a baby's first year. A baby's first year of life is loaded with emergent behaviors. We just hope we can catch photographs of all of them. So this gets me to, all right, if this is what health is, if we have a bigger definition of what health means, how do we keep a living system healthy? What would fitness look like to keep this system healthy, especially with all the stresses and the ruptures that we've had in our social fabric, in our environment, and in our personal lives in the last couple of years? What does it mean to be fit? And I'm talking about at any age. What does it mean to be as fit as we can be when so much is changing all around us? Well, maybe we begin by asking if when you move, do I really move in a way that honors my emergence? What is newly arising in me? Or am I just doing these kind of mindless repetitions of old movement patterns? And do I let my mind wander while I'm doing it? Am I even there? Or do I give up my agency to some teacher or a trainer? This new definition of health, I want to say, is that we have the freedom and the knowledge to pursue our highest potential for a dynamic and empowered living that contributes to my well-being as a whole person, the well-being of the environment that I'm in, the community that I'm in, and that I have the support of that community, so that my local universe is actively engaged in both my awareness of my health and fitness, and that it is contributing to it as well. So that I can get the support of a much wider sphere, like that Hoberman sphere getting bigger, that I link up with a larger network of support. So we're nature and our bodies are earth. And in order to achieve this anti-fragility and step into the challenges of the 21st century, we have to shift our mindset around movement and fitness practices from the 19th and 20th century. So this all grew out of Borelli, who in 1620 said, oh, we are biomechanical. We are those mannequins, those artists' mannequins that move at the joints like stick figures. And we kind of formed our whole fitness and wellness practices out of this field of understanding of what the body was. But actually, that we have a whole new understanding of that now. And The biomechanical model has changed now to a biotensegral understanding of how we can thrive in relationship to and like our natural environment. So you've been seeing here some influences, because I wanted to, before I dove right into it today, really just give you a little sense of who we are beyond that beautiful introduction that Deanna gave us. So we have studied for many years together and done our own somatic exploration together. And we have a wide variety of influences that inform the work that we do. And here you see Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen and Emily Conrad, two giants in our somatic understanding. You see the book Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan, who was our teacher in energy healing and is still such an important influence in our work today. You see a little bit of a book by the cover by Stanley Kelman. It's called Emotional Anatomy. Very interesting book. A little bit dated, but my God, he really was just such a pioneer. And the illustrations are amazing because we are shaped by our emotions all through our lives. That's nothing new. Then on the next row, you see Calvin Holt, the gentleman with the tie and the jacket. He was where we met. He was our mentor. He was a maverick beyond belief who taught us how to move energy through our bodies. Where we continued to refine that work with our yoga studies, Katona yoga was a big influence for many years. And then, but really, I think it all began, don't you, Bruce, with Mind of the Cells, Sri Aurobindo and the mother.
Yeah, evolution.
Yeah.
We're on an evolutionary journey here.
Yes. And that really is what it's all about. So, Bruce, if you could take us back to that quantum slide. What are we talking about when we say a new view of the body? We're talking about a living liquid crystal matrix. That is what your fascia is. That's what healthy fascia is. This is a new understanding. It's really only emerged in the last 15 years, but there's a lot of incredibly solid research to support all of this. So what is this living liquid crystal matrix? Well, first of all, it's soft matter. So it's not a liquid, a solid, or a gas. It can change from a fluid state to a solid state. Back and forth, it changes in its phases because it's responding over time to how we move and how our tissues resonate. And we need to have these phase changes because when the solid parts are active, they divide and support. So we don't want our intestines merging with our sexual organs or any other part bleeding into something else. So dividing is good. And supporting also is good. We want to be able to not collapse under the weight of emotional stress or gravity. And then it also is liquid. So it's not like it's either or, it's both. And it's both at the same time, and it's both changing within a spectrum of sol to gel. So sol meaning liquid, gel meaning solid. I know it's a little confusing, but I think that's Italian. I'm not sure. But the liquid part carries the information and it transports nutrients to the cells and moves the waste matter away, and it keeps everything communicating coherently. So another thing about the quantum anatomy of the body is that it is auxetic, which means, like the Hoberman Sphere in the breath meditation, tissues expand. But when the Hoberman Sphere got smaller, it did not contract. That's what's so interesting about it. It did not get smaller. Now, I know it's like a toy and it's not real tissue, but get this into, feel what I'm saying here. Instead of a tissue contracting, it's actually expanding, but it's expanding in the opposite direction of where you're extending it. And that causes a warping that creates spirals and helixes, like DNA spirals. And the other thing about your quantum anatomy and this whole quantum world is that it is a complex nonlinear system. It's unstable. That's the nature of those systems. They are nonlinear and they appear like everything is chaotic. However, there's an underlying dynamic order. There's an implicate order that it lies beneath and kind of just holds everything in this sea of coherence. And at the right time, the system can transform and manifest a higher order, a higher complexity, a higher coherence. So Bruce, if you'd slip now over to slide 5.
You want Bucky?
I won. Bucky.
Bucky disappeared.
Bucky.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just going to go ahead, and if he pops up, he pops up. So this is nothing like live TV, folks.
That's fine, Bucky.
Let's talk about tensegrity and biotensegrity. So tensegrity, maybe you could just go back to pictures, live photos. So tensegrity, let me tell you this. Bucky Fuller was the one who got the word tensegrity in his brain, and it has carried forward long after his death. So he said it's a combination of two words, tension and integrity. So tensegrity really means the tension that provides structural integrity to a form. And the prefix bio has the phenomenon that we find in all the fascial architecture of all living things. Bio referring to biology. So what we have here is this tensegral structure providing this integrity to a form that is so light and has these other really, really interesting properties that bring us into a way that we can move easily with all of the forces that are impacting us. So nature has a way of organizing herself in response to the constant forces of gravity, electromagnetic energy, weak and strong nuclear forces, and now a fifth force. First, scientists said, oh, there's no such thing as a fifth force. And then Einstein came along and said, no, you know what? Maybe there is a fifth force. I'm calling it the God force. But now they're saying, oh, yeah, there is a fifth force. And we're calling it dark matter. So we have all these forces impacting life here on Earth. And it's a lot, and it gets intense. And this fifth force is something that really is a big piece of this quantum anatomy, because these are these hidden bridges into manifesting our potential. And it may be that if we understand more about how nature deals with all these forces, pardon me, we can learn something. So now we're going to look a little bit deeper into how nature does it by looking at 3 fundamental principles that nature uses in organizing all life. And here now, I want you to look at the slide. The first principle is minimal energy and maximum efficiency. And that's really what you see in tensegrity structures, like a geodesic dome. So think of this, the basic unit of life is round. Our cells are spherical. That is the most energy efficient form. It is so efficient that it enables us to do amazing things with maximum efficiency in quantum time and a minimal use of energy. For instance, if you see your baby about to get hit by a car and you run out into the street and grab that child and pull them away in the nick of time, you're making a lightning quick whole body movement before you even realize that you need to move because the car could hit the child. You can't think about it. You can't have that go into your central nervous system and have that come down and tell your muscles to move and make you run into the street and grab that child. You don't have time for that. Nervous system time is much slower. And quantum time is the time of the fascia. Now, I just want to clarify one thing. When I said make your muscles move to go out into the street and grab that child, actually, we don't move because our muscles move our bones. We move because the muscles tension the fascia, and that moves the bones. And the bones are what act as kind of like a sonar that you hit the ground and the energy comes up into your body and that moves your bones. So that doesn't even include your central nervous system. So our next thing that nature does is that it does this thing called close packing. So you have all these tiny little cells. You've got 37.2 trillion human cells, that's the latest number, plus 39 trillion microbial cells, more microbes in us than humans, human cells. And all of this is close packed together in a sea of swirling intra and extracellular matrices that are biotensegral. They are geodesic. And we look solid, but we're not. And you know that if you got a microscope and you could see that what we really are closely packed spheres. But you know, if you ever tried to put a bunch of marbles into a glass, they don't touch everywhere. And so you have these little spaces in between the cells and the marbles. And that's what happens in our body, that we close pack in this way so that everything is residing happily. Those spaces in between coexist with all of the little cells, and all of it is beautifully nested fractals tending towards symbiosis, tending toward the impulse to get along, to cooperate. It's like a basic principle of life. We open ourselves and unfold our conscious awareness as bioelectric energy flows through us. When you have this kind of happy, coherent, close packing. Now, the third principle is called geodesic geometry. So think that the 80 trillion swirling cells, they're living in this living web. They're embedded in it, they're floating in it, and they self-organize into this implicate order that arises out of being tossed around like crazy by all these forces. But underlying that order, underlying that is movement and shifting and constant adapting and adjusting to all the changes that these forces are imposing upon us. And things can get pretty chaotic and pretty sticky, and we have to keep adapting. And how does that happen? When so much can go wrong, when so much stress can be added in. But what we need to remember is that this underlying order organizes itself into a specific geometry that's based on the spherical cell itself, which is largely 75%, sometimes in babies, 80% water. We're bags of water. All these cells of ours are basically little bags of water. And the forces that organize into this specific geometry is attuned to, is based on water. And the geometric figure that is based on water is the icosahedron, which you'll see Bruce and I playing with when we start to move in a few minutes. But I want to say now that it acts as a living liquid crystal matrix. When you have this order that arises based on these shaping of forces into this icosahedron, this geometric sacred form, right? That moves us into coherence, moves all those close packing cells to cooperate with one another so that the cells maintain their own integrity and their own agency, but they're all also acting as a whole. That's the kind of order that arises in nature as energy moves through all these little bags of water in a fern, in a foot, in a dog, in a person. And we thought it would be really interesting to take a look at what are some of nature's solutions? Because we looked and we realized there are recurring patterns that nature uses as she dances with these forces. And here you see spirals, meanders of rivers. You see explosions like a dandelion down there on the bottom left. You see branching of the tree limbs. And then up at the top right, you see close packing. So I love the close packing one so much because there's little spheres inside all those little honeycombs, right? And then you get to see the shape in between that is made from those tightly packed bags of water. And then we want to know that these cells are collaborating with one another in this synergistic network. And we see this again and again in nature. So let's take another look at a couple of other things because it recurs everywhere. This is a picture of a lung, and that is a picture of a tree. And then the next one, this is a journey to the center of a dandelion. And while I'm not saying a dandelion has fascia, I have to say that those little webs sure look like fascia to me. That's a great image of our fascial network. And if you could imagine, it's not just static, It's growing, it's alive, it's moving, it's responding, it's swirling and spiraling and connecting up all those little bags of water. So let's go on now. Maybe you can get to the full screen of us. I don't know, Bruce. Let's go. How do we translate this into our lives to make it something that we can bring into our lives that bring us a greater sense of ease in the way we move, in the way we feel, in our feelings about what we're going to create in our future lives, how we embody this sacred present moment. Well, empaths, I want to really address this to the empaths, because I think most of us here fall into that category. We certainly work with a lot of them. Empaths are the ones who are really concerned about making this great transition. How does humanity do it? And most of us feel too much and we say, ay, feeling is the last thing I need. I don't need to feel more. But actually, we do. We do need to feel more. We need to feel more, but not just the feelings of anxiety and depression and overwhelm and shutting down and angst. What we need to feel more is pleasure. Because within this whole spectrum of our bodies, pleasure has kind of gotten forgotten. We kind of have this knee-jerk reaction to running the patterns that have been established in our central nervous system and numbing out the sensory capacities of our bodies. So I want to say to you, the next evolutionary step in our awakening is to awaken our feeling, our sensory capacities to feel, so that we can change and we can anchor good emotional states in us. And that will change our perception, because I got to tell you, perception is a two-way street. You think you're looking at an object and that's the way it is, but the object is looking at you. The object is changing as you perceive it, because you're not coming with pure neutrality as you look at that object. You're coming with everything you know about what that object has represented to you in the past. And that object changes in your perception based on that. So we need to understand that. And if we want to leverage our natural empathic strengths, then we want to know that we can do these interventions, these somatic interventions, and that with our fascia, and that every time we do that, we change our nervous systems. We change our autonomic nervous systems. Fascia is so connected to our emotions. Fascia is our most nerve-rich organ. We've got 250 million sensory nerve endings in our fascia. And they are by far, they're like 10 times more sensory receptors than there are motor receptors. So we're like giant satellite dishes taking in feeling and responding. So think about all those close packed cells and how they're responding to these forces that are moving us. And when we have these various emotions, our bodies change the tone of our fascia. They're either going to make it stiff or lax. Neuronal connections to certain parts of us kind of go offline. But the good news is that we can do something about that. We can change that to feel more pleasure. And in that, we awaken this part of us called the Salience Network in our brain, which is kind of a new way of looking at, like maybe since 2005, that not that new, but a new understanding of looking at how sections in our brain work together, like a suite of parts of the brain connected and working together. And that's what the Salience Network is. Salience is from this word that derives from the etymology of it is that you zero in, you focus in on what you value, and you put your energy toward that. And that what's really interesting about the Salience Network, not only does it help you focus on what you value and direct your energy toward that, but it's activated by pleasure. So now we know, oh, I can direct my interoceptive awareness to the sensation of streaming energy through my body in order to stay in a flow state. Or I can direct my proprioceptive awareness to how my feet are moving and make contact with the earth in order to feel balanced and stable and grounded. So that's a little bit about what we're going to give you a taste of today. And I want to say in our work together, that's really what we focus on is giving you a multisensory approach to a somatic training of the body with the integration of opening perception skills. We've got a program called Emergence. We're going to put a link in the comments later on. But really what I'd love to do now is get up and move. And before we do that, if you want to join us, and you don't have to, you can sit and watch. You'll be in the energetic field of us anyway, but you're going to need some props. And I really have kind of simple everyday props. You'll need 2 pencils, if you have them, or pens, or chopsticks. You're going to need 2 towels. You can use hand towels, just roll them lengthwise, or a bath towel, 2 towels rolled up. Or if you happen to have 2 yoga mats, you can roll those up. You'll need a chair to sit in. You'll need a little bit of space so that when you stand up, you can move around without knocking into things. You're not going to be moving your feet. You'll need space to lie down on the floor, like a yoga mat size space. You can use one of your mats for that. And then this is just optional, a ball. We have a purple gorgeous ball. Some of you may have it. Or this is just a cheapo ball, child's ball from Walmart. And if you don't have it, fine. And if you do have it, the squishier, the better. So I'm going to just give you a minute to get your props and join us in some movement.
Over here now.
Okay. Get this out of the way. So I'm going to bring in my 2 round rolled up yoga mats, but I'm not going to use them quite yet. And got my pencils. Bruce, here are your pencils. Okay, so I hope that you've gotten your props and you're able to join us. Let's put our pencils on the floor for just a moment and just stand up in this space. Feels good to stand up.
Yeah.
Whew. And just give yourself a moment now. Usually we find we need to kind of orient outside of ourselves, exteroception a little bit before it feels safe to go inside. So I'm looking around the room, just kind of with a soft gaze. And I'm I'm opening up my body a little bit, but I'm going to do that in a moment. So I'm just really just like not doing, not motoring, but just sensing. And I'm not only sensing it with my eyes, but I'm feeling the temperature, the air, the support that I feel in this space, because I love this space. I'm in my studio and it feels good. So now I can start to bring my awareness closer into my body, and I can start to notice, how are my feet standing on the floor? Is my weight back in my heels? Is it in the front of my heel? I'm going to move to the front of my heel. No, that doesn't feel normal. What about the arches? Oh no, that doesn't feel normal. The balls of the feet, the toes. I'm just going to move back and forth a little bit until I land where I feel most natural. Oh, and that's really for me toward the back of the heel. So nothing is wrong. You can't do this wrong. You just notice. You're kind of just taking a baseline now, going a little bit deeper. How do I feel inside? And you might start to notice what feels tight first, or what feels cold or tingly. Just taking a baseline of where you are. And now we're going to get the pencils. And what you're going to do is stand on the pencils on a diagonal. So I'm coming a little bit closer to show you. The first diagonal is going to go from the ball of the foot at the big toe to the outside of the front heel, just in front of the heel. There's a little bone there called the cuboid bone. So that would mean that you see the ball of my foot and my cuboid bone here, okay? So I would be holding a little bit closer, hold my foot up. There's the pencil. Woo. Okay, so I don't think I'm going to do that for the other diagonal. So stand on your pencils. And you should probably see the tips of the pencils coming out the sides of your feet, right? So you're, unless you have incredibly large feet. And here you go. Just take a stand here. Now, I want to bring your awareness to the four corners of the bottoms of the foot. And we're thinking the ball of the big toe, the ball of the baby toe, the inner heel corner, and the outer heel corner. So those four corners, imagine you could just suction them down to the floor a little bit. And now you're paying particular attention to the sensation under the ball of the foot at the big toe and the outer heel, that diagonal. Can you drop into your sensing body and feel inside? What I'm noticing is that my weight has shifted forward, but I don't feel like I'm going to fall over. I don't feel that. I feel a sense of stability.
I immediately felt more stable.
Yeah. And I feel my sit bones, my ischial tuberosities in the back, those little bones. If you poke around in your butt a little bit, you feel those bones, your sit bones. Most of you know that. I feel like my sit bones are spreading a little wider, and my sacrum feels wider, and I feel like this, like I had a belt wrapping around from the back of my pelvis toward the front, and then down the insides of my legs, all the way through the insides of my feet to my big toes. So what I'm suggesting to you is that you're experiencing one of those hidden bridges, one of those emergent properties that exists within you anyway. And it's a part of your inheritance as a human. It's a part of our movement inheritance. This ability to stand up straight and feel safe and stable and in balance. And when we really ground through the ball of the foot at the big toe, and the outer heel corner, that's an emergent property that arises in us. A lot of us don't put so much weight in the ball of the foot at the big toe, or maybe the right foot you're good at, but the left foot not so much. Let's try the other diagonal now. So this diagonal is, you're just going to reverse it, and it's going to be from the ball of the foot at the baby toe side to the right where the heel meets the arch on the inside of the foot, known as the navicular bone. So we still are focusing on the four corners. And you still want to let yourself just adjust to that sensation under those two spots with the pencils. And then give yourself a moment and go inside and notice how you're feeling. So now I notice that I'm feeling that I'm feeling a sense of width through the outside of my feet. And I'm feeling a sense of spreading through the front of my pelvis. So it's not that the back of my pelvis is coming around and down my legs like that, but it's kind of like there's an opposite. There's a widening, there's an opening.
Whole frontal space got more supported and present.
This is an emergent property to bring you into presence, because you may be somebody who likes to hang out in the back and doesn't even realize it. And you're wondering, why can't I step forward? Why am I always back there? So we just want to get ourselves familiar with these tiny changes that we can make to enhance our well-being, to bring more of us, more of our embodied selves into the present. So we're going to take away the pencils now, and you can keep them and use them for yourselves later on when you need a little reminder. For now, let's just begin to move just a little bit, like those Hoberman spheres, to pandiculate, to get the body moving and stretching and opening up a little bit. Because we've been doing a lot of standing still. And remember, a pandiculation, like that Hoberman sphere, you have to go inside and feel. Where do I want to open up? Oh, there, wait a minute. I want to open up my chest and my arms, and I'm going to open all the way out to my fingertips. And then I'm going to come back in again to center. I'm not making myself smaller. I'm just folding into myself and feeling, what does it feel like when I close pack all of those cells of mine? It opens me up to a new feeling in a new place. And then I'm going to just bring myself out of that and find the four corners again. And now as I'm finding those four corners again, I'm just going to start to glue them down to the floor and bounce a little bit. Just a little bit of shaking, just a little bit of bouncing, really gentle. And you can't do this wrong. And please be very minimal in whatever you do, and then let it build up if it feels right. And if it does feel right, maybe it's going to take you into a little bit of bouncy stuff, because it's this that starts to bring up that ground reaction force from the earth through your body and lift you up. Whew. Okay, so I want to play a little fun game with you, and we're going to use these two mats, or you're going to use the rolled up towels, or you're just going to use the floor. And then I encourage you in other spaces, like if you're walking on a rocky surface, with pebbles, like a stream bed or something, play around with uneven surfaces. Play with scratchy, soft, mossy, barefoot, muddy. Explore what it's like to have something under your feet other than the floor or carpeting or pavement. No civilized surfaces. And I'm just going to stand on these mats, and Bruce is just, you're going to do it with, oh, you're going to do it with the ICO. I need to move so you can do it with the ICO.
Hanging ICO.
Oh, so this is the ICO ball. Let me show you real quick. When we were talking about the icosahedron, and we had the other slide up and you couldn't see it, but this is an example of an icosahedron. And Bruce has one that he's hanging on the wall using. And I'm just going to, he's just doing that to give him, the mobility, the kind of unexpected mobility of
Shifting my weight.
a shifting surface. And I'm doing it with the yoga mats. So here we go. We're going to go heel, back of the heel, front of the heel, arch, ball, toe. Just sliding back and forth a little bit with your body weight. Ooh, it's a whole different experience on these mats, I'll tell you. And then let yourself now begin to play a little bit. So what if you go arches out, arches in? Remember the four corners? And try to keep them down as you're going arches out and arches in. What about if you go to your right side? So you arches out on the right, arches in on the left, and vice versa. So you're shifting and the foot is pronating and supinating. And this is actually what needs to happen as you're moving your feet all the time anyway. And if you're hydrated, everything glides nicely. But if you're not, things get sticky, right? And now let's go in a little circle around, going all the way back to the heels, to the inside and outside borders of the foot, to the toes. Try to cover as much of the surface of the foot as you can. Let's go the other way. Circle around, and remember, just play. And if it hurts, don't do it. Maybe you want to do it very minimally. Your primary thing is to take care of you. What about if I take my knees out and I'm on outer borders with both feet? Knees in, inner borders with both feet. Keep your knees together, go forward, open it all the way around, go back, knees together, forward, open around, go back. Let's go the other way. Knees together, go back and around. And you're just inviting your feet, your legs, your pelvis, all the bones there to start to glide, to spin, because that rotation of the bones is what helps us move energy through the body. So next, we want to warm up your back just a little bit. Now, Bruce is already doing that really nicely. I'm just going to get in front of him here, and you're going to come to a wall or a desk. Your hands can be on the chair. Your hands can be on your desk. And all that you're doing is pressing your hands and bending one knee at a time as you lengthen from your crown to your tailbone. Nice long spine. And then let's take it and play with this movement a little bit. So bend both knees and straighten your legs and round your back, and then bend your knees. And round your back and bend your knees. And just get a little wave action going in your whole spine. Nice, easy wave action. And then you're going to bend your right knee and press your left hand into the wall or onto the chair and straighten both legs, and bend your left knee and press your right hand. And just easy bending. And what I want you to begin to notice as you bend is that your hands are starting to do a little natural push-pull motion. And you're starting to open up all of that thoracolumbar fascia in your back. Everything is starting to lengthen and loosen up a little bit. And then simply round your spine and come to stand. So now let's sit down. So your bones move you. Muscles don't pull on the bones to make you move. Muscles don't contract to move a bone, all right? What happens is muscles undergo a change, and it's all this symbiotic kind of, it's like music. It all works together. So you can't say, oh, this does it and that doesn't. But you have to think in the whole system of movement, the myofascial system. And bones have been classified as fascia now for several years. That was a big deal to realize that they're part of that system. So the muscles change their shape, and that tensions the fascial web differently. And that pulls on the bones or pushes on the bones, and that's what makes us move. So we also want to realize that bones are like sonar devices, that they can pick up the ground reaction force. So one of those forces, those 5 fundamental forces that impact us all the time, gravity. Gravity is not just the force down. Gravity is a force of lift as well. And ground reaction force is that when we make contact with the earth, when our fascia is hydrated and well organized in a healthy state, that ground reaction force comes up and acts like a spring that enables us to move. And that's how we move with less energy, more efficiently. So another thing that bones do is that they spin. And they spin in different directions. So there'll be a right hand spin and a left hand spin. And it's that spinning in chirality that acts like an electromagnetic pump, so that the piezoelectric energy is conducted through our bodies and helps us to move. So we are really bioelectric organisms. We are meant to do that. We are bodies of light. So let's check on how those bones are spinning in us. So I want you to sit a little bit forward in your chair, 4 corners of the feet planted on the floor, plug in. So you really now know how to ground your feet nicely. And keeping that grounding, we're going to just reach the left knee forward, so that the left leg reaches out of the hip a little bit and the right leg comes into the hip socket. And if you have a ball and you want to put it between your knees, this is a great place to do it. But sometimes if the ball isn't between your knees will flop open, and then you don't have your 4 corners plugged in your feet. So you're going to reach the left knee and then slowly pull it in. And reach the right knee and slowly pull it in. And you're just going to alternate in your own timing back and forth. So get into your own bodies and feel this. I want you to feel the experience of this. I want you to feel how the way that you are moving your body is a series of spirals and figure eights, so that your feet are pronating and supinating, but you're not peeling part of the foot off the floor. So that your tibia As you reach a knee forward, it goes forward and dorsiflexes that ankle. Ooh, that feels good. Most of us don't dorsiflex enough. We don't get that transfer of weight enough going through the foot. And then when that happens, we tend to hold in our low backs, tend to have a lot of tension. We tend to hoist up the body to compensate. So the feet are pronating and supinating, and the tibias are going spiraling. They're helping that transfer of weight forward in the foot, but also as the knee reaches forward, the tibia spins in. Ooh. Now, do one leg and hold it there. So I want you to notice the knee, the leg of the knee that's reaching forward. What's happening in the upper leg? The femur is spiraling in. And the femur of the other leg, the leg that's pulling back into the hip socket, that femur is spiraling open. So here you get these opposite spirals from the feet up through the lower legs into the thighs. Come a little bit forward so you're sitting evenly on the pubic bone and the two sit bones. So you're not back on your sit bones or forward on your pubic bones. Line up the crown, the occiput, the back of the head, with the sacrum in the back body. And make yourself nice and long through the whole torso so you create some length tension in the body. And as you create length tension this way, what we know about auxetic expansion is that I'm also creating more volume horizontally and sagittally. So this is how we begin to participate in the opening of our own sensory system by awakening the fascia. Last thing I want to bring to your attention here is your pelvis. So as your knee reaches forward, my left knee is reaching forward. I'm noticing how my pelvis rotates on my femoral head, and I rotate my pelvis to the right. And then I reach my right knee forward, and I'm noticing how my pelvis is rotating on my femoral head to rotate my pelvis to the left. And as soon as I do the right side, the left knee reaching and I rotate right, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty stable. But as soon as I take my right knee forward and go to the other side, I get kind of wonky and wobbly. So I just want to notice that, because we're different on each side. And if you notice a little glitch like that, you know you're probably compensating somewhere. So the final thing I want to do is take us down to the floor, where we can begin to explore that a little bit more. What if you notice a little glitch, that you're not as stable on one leg as you are on another? How do we begin to address that? So if you have a ball, you can keep it between your knees. And then if you don't, you can, Bruce, you can do that, Bruce. You can bring it in, bring the ICO in and do it with the ICO. He's holding up the ICO, and that's why I hesitated.
He's shy.
We're playing it loose here, folks. So we're going to do the pelvic clock. It's a very simple thing, but if you can imagine that the pelvis is sitting on, the clock is sitting on your pelvis. So if you're on the ceiling looking at yourself, 12 o'clock is about 2 inches below your navel, and 6 o'clock is just above your pubic bone. So 3 o'clock is about 2 inches from the hip in the center of your pelvis, and 9 o'clock is directly across from that. So now that we have the cardinal directions, let's find the diagonals. So can you find 2 o'clock, your upper left part of your pelvis? But we're going to go in and make it small because we're actually focusing on the sacrum, which moves a little bit independently of the pelvis. And then directly excuse me, in a diagonal down from that to your right groin is 8 o'clock. So it's kind of like we're doing pencils here. And then I want you to put 2 fingers on the left groin, and that's your 4 o'clock. Draw a diagonal up to your upper right part of your pelvis, and that is 10 o'clock. So we have 4 and 10 and 2 and 8. And then notice the 4 corners of your feet plugged in, and give yourself a moment just to relax. Let the body weight settle. Let yourself come into this experience of being supported by the weight of your body against the floor, by the floor rising up and lifting your body so that you're not collapsing, but your body has internal tone. The 4 corners of the feet are resting on the floor evenly. Then you're going to take your fingers back to 2 o'clock and 8 o'clock. And we're going to move very slowly. We're going to press 2 fingers at 2 o'clock and feel the rolling of the back of your pelvis against the floor as the 2 o'clock point sinks down into the floor, and your pelvis will roll. It'll rotate a little bit to your left. And then release that and just notice the quality of the tissue. Do you bounce back? Does it take a while to bounce back? Or do you have to make yourself come back to neutral? And then press down at the 8 o'clock and let your pelvis rotate a little bit to the right as that 8 o'clock point drops down into the floor. Sink it down, sink it down, sink it down. And then release the pressure and notice, does it want to spring back on its own? How responsive is that tissue? And bringing it back to neutral now. One more time each, 2 o'clock, dropping that stone down. Rotating to the left, and let it release, noticing the responsiveness of the tissue. Maybe you're getting more responsive. Pressing down at 8 o'clock, let that drop down and down and down and down. You don't even have to keep moving. You can just intend and notice. Be mindful of how the body is responding and what it feels like to go through the motion. And then release and let it bounce back. Let's go to 4 and 8. I'm sorry, 10. So press down in the left groin, that's 4 o'clock. Sink it down, sink it down. My pelvis rotates left this time. And I release. Now this time, I'll tell you, it doesn't want to bounce back as much for me. And then pressing down at 10 o'clock. I really have to press hard to get this part of my pelvis to begin to rotate right. So you're still on the 4 corners of the feet, but your feet are doing a little bit of pronation and supination here. Your feet are responding. Pressing down at 4, let it sink. Let it drop. Make a nice sound. Oh, let go. And then release the pressure and let it bounce back. Spring back. Pressing down at 10 o'clock. Oh. Release. And letting the tissue plump you back into a neutral pelvis. and rest. So obviously that is the kind of exercise that we could spend a lot of time on, but we don't have the time to do that today. I want to encourage you to play and explore your own body. And as you do this kind of movement, I want you to feel that sensation of pleasure. You're going to feel the body moving along the back of the pelvis, moving like a bowl against the surface that you're lying on. And you have to remember that you have all those sensory neurons there that can harvest so much information. It feels so wonderful to completely rest your body of the excess muscular tension that you have. And this Ico ball, I gotta tell you, is a great way, if you're curious, get in touch with us, because it's a great way that you can apply a constraint to your thighs and let some of the chronic tension of your thighs and your glutes relax, so that you can then open up into this rich repository of pleasure that awaits you. So I invite you to just play and explore, because that is really the key to having fun and experiencing that pleasure that ignites your Salience Network, that enables you to really know, oh, wait a minute, why was I doing all this other stuff? Why I'm so distracted? I can focus on what I really value. And I think that's a great way to get out of overwhelm.
Beautiful.
But that's it. Thank you.
Beautiful, brilliant. Wow, Elizabeth, you are extraordinary. And Bruce, I want to acknowledge all of your amazing symbiotic movement with what she was saying with her words. It was just like the example of it perfectly for all of us to observe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow.
Beautiful mover, always has been.
I'm totally like in a trance state after the pelvic work with my sacrum. It was so powerful, just that connection. I want to bring Jim back. And I haven't even had a chance to look if there's several questions maybe from the chat. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, thank you so much. I was entranced, and we think of the heart and the brain and the lungs, but we don't often take note of the fascia. And so what you've been laying out has been a real illumination to me, and making me realize there's just one more aspect of my reality I need to pay more attention to. I mean, just keeping up with yourself is a full-time job. And so I just want to acknowledge that and thank you. And, a question that I would love to have you expand on is the relationship between the fascia and breathing. If we've been talking about the coherent breathing and the effect that it has on the body, I would love to hear, and I think our audience would love to hear a little bit more on how coherent breathing supports fascia elasticity and capacity. Is that something you can speak on?
Yes.
Yes, we can. We can. And I
For a couple of hours.
probably. I also want, if you don't mind, to approach it from the other way of how fascial health supports coherent breathing. So when you look at the rib cage and the spine, and all of the ribs have different facet joints that attach to the vertebrae at different angles. And each one of those joints has fascia in it. The bones are also fascia. So you can have stickiness there. You can have stickiness in the intercostals between the ribs. You can have stickiness where the ribs attach to the sternum. Then you can have stickiness at the xiphoid process at the end of the sternum. So you can have a lot of stickiness appears up here in the top of the sternum, known as the manubrium. A lot of times you'll see people and they're walking like this. And they're swinging their shoulders like this, but there's no rotation taking place here. And that rotation, if you press your manubrium, you can begin to rotate from the center, from the midline of the body. You begin to recall that embryonic organization around the midline. The cells of the embryo in the midline are the fascial cells, the stem cells. They're the moving mesokinetic cells that restore our vitality. So when you have sticky, hot, poor, chaotically organized fascia, your ability to breathe is diminished. So we want to be able to hydrate all along here and move the ribs in all the possible ranges of movement, side bending, rotation. Ribs are moving in a figure 8-like pattern, right rib, left rib. So when you get all of that going, you have the capacity to increase the volume of your breath so much more, to breathe with the whole lung. And in addition to that, the coherent breathing is really, in my mind, it is a phase of it's perhaps the most, it's like the filet mignon of the wonderful phases of hydraulic breathing. Deep, full diaphragmatic breathing that involves the diaphragms of the feet, the pelvic floor, the respiratory diaphragm, the thoracic diaphragm, the cranial diaphragm. You get all those diaphragms, they're gently floating like 5 jellyfish floating one over the other, kind of in synchronicity, in coherence.
That's what's becoming coherent, is actually the different rhythms of the different phases of the breath through the whole body.
Yeah.
Not just the lungs expanding and contracting, condensing, but the whole body begins to pulse. And to tap into that, though, the intelligence of the fascia may not want to go and breathe in 8 counts and back down. I've done thousands of yoga classes, right? And this is what we taught, okay, breathe in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, pause, exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Pause, right? There's the pause. So those are the biomechanical phases of a breath. But yet the fascia is like, when I wake up and start breathing, if I listen to my breath, I go this far. Oh, and then it comes in. And then the next one, it's like I have a picture of a ball floating in a stream or in a pond, and it starts to takes its time, and all of a sudden then it catches a little wave and moves a little bit more. So the next breath may come up a little farther and nudge myself here to move a little bit more open there. So now I'm staying in sync and resonant with my whole fascial field. And then the next one, now I know that I'm going here, because that's me. I want the full breath. I want the full coherency of the breath. So the next breath may be a little bit more, and everything expands and opens and adjusts itself, right? Because this is a fluids within fluids. So it's all adjusting itself to get to the next place, because we're always moving energy, and energy moves in phrases. There's a natural length of the phrase that can go, and here it's staying organic. So now I'm starting to build up the pump. Now I can feel the pump getting stronger, more coherent. Now the pump gets bigger, and then finally I get to that full exotic expansion of that breath, and then back on down, and then I start up. Where's the next breath? And and to build strength and so forth, I might want to go, okay, how far can I keep this going? And it'll have its own phrasing in phase two, because it could only sustain so much expansion before it has to regather, more energy and reorganize itself. And that's where the pleasure comes in so much, because there's as much pleasure here as there is in here.
Yeah, it's so like the holographic anatomy and how it feeds the different phases, like you say, Bruce, of all of our, it's so delectable, and the movement and I feel so fluid after this. I don't know about everybody else. I feel like I'm sitting on a wave now of fluidity. I wanted to ask a question from the chat. Somebody was having some issues with the bottom of their feet when you were rolling or standing on the pencils, and to find, a methodology to the fluidity. Do you have any suggestions? I mentioned an acupressure ball to just bring some energy into the bottom of the feet. Slowly, it will unwind some of the tension and that static energy in the
I think that's a great suggestion. If you're feeling pain in the bottom of your feet, there's a whole way that you can use that a small ball, any small ball, even a dead tennis ball will do, and you can just very lightly press down, not to the place where there's any kind of pain, but you just press and release, and you can explore different places. But again, if you don't mind looking at the bottom of my foot, I would suggest starting in the center heel, trying the ball at the big toe, and then just going like across the metatarsals, all 5 of them. Try down here at the navicular where we were, try over here at the cuboid where we were, and really, you just very lightly apply the teeniest bit of pressure. And then it's like you stepped on chewing gum. Slowly lift off. And a lot of times that will help awaken the foot. It's a great thing to do that with both feet, but do one foot first and then walk around and you go, oh my God, my foot feels so alive. And then you can do the other foot because you want 2 alive feet. But I would try that. There could, standing on those pencils for a long time, it maybe that person was just standing there and, it was like too much weight. So I'd try the light touch.
Wonderful. Great. Wonderful. I am so enthralled having you on today. It was just extraordinary. And your slides and showing what we were about to do was so spot on. And everybody in the chat was just really amazed. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. It's our great pleasure.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Bruce. It's been very profound and inspiring. And I just want to acknowledge your mastery and thank you for it. And I hope you can put your website in the chat so people can know how to get a hold of you. And they've both written a number of books, everyone, that are well worth reading.
And join the after chat too, please. People want you to join. I don't know if you have some time right now.
We do have time. Do we just stay here for that after chat?
No, there's a link in the chat box that Stan just put in. So you just click on that link. It's also in the email that you got from Katie with the Zoom link for today. There's the link to the after chat group.
Okay.
So Deanna, just tell us a word about tomorrow.
Oh, wow. It's the 3rd day. I'm very excited. These are personal and wonderful friends of mine here in Marin County, and they use this incredible methodology and an energy-based model with pendulums to get information from your biofield, and then working the meridian system and releasing stuck emotions and how to connect to that and our inner peace. Supporting that. This is the whole week impetus for us, and also the brilliant Miriam Jacobs with her somatic model with tarot in motion, using the cards to get information, all universal field consciousness reconnecting. So I'm very excited to have them back.
Yeah, they're amazing.
So great, wonderful. Join us at the after chat, Elizabeth and Bruce. We'll be honored to have you. And thank you so much for your
Thank you
presence.
so much. It's
Thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you, Jim.
Such,
Yeah.
I mean, amazing work. You should be in every medical school of the
Totally.
country.
Totally. Every medical school. Absolutely.
Thank you so
Maybe,
much.
Deanna, we should talk, but there's a whole kind of master's program with all the practitioners that you're bringing in for people just to learn through the simplicity of a pencil or a tennis ball or a ball from Walmart, a few things, just how alive and vitalizing you can be just by doing very commonsensical, practical practices that have been known in most cases for thousands of years. So Bruce and Elizabeth, thank you so much. Deanna, thank you. That'll do it for us for today, everyone. You're welcome to the after session chat group. You'll see the link in the chat, and we'll see everybody tomorrow here again on Humanity Rising for the third of a 5-day program on self, health, healing, and regeneration. Thanks so much. Bye for now.